Hey, welcome back, Jorbs here. So I'm talking about the 5 world record win streaks that I had between August and February 2020 to 2021. And I got done with Ironclad, and it took me way longer than I thought, so I realized this needed to be 5 separate videos instead of just being one video for all of them. Today we're going to talk about Silent. If you've never played Slay the Spire before, you should. It's awesome. This world record streak began January 28th. So, bit of context here. Every year for the last 3 years I've had a month where I try to win as many runs as I possibly can over the course of 1 month. Is that true? Maybe it's more like every 8 months for the last 2 years or something, but vaguely that's the idea. I've done it 3 times. And prior to 2021, my highest number was 102 hard kills in 30 days, which is quite a lot. And I did that in, I think, something like 230 runs. This was on an earlier patch. The game was significantly harder. And I was very proud that I'd done that. Like, I set a goal of 100 for myself, and I succeeded at it, and I thought that I learned a lot about the game and played pretty well considering and everything. I think I actually, in the 102 month, ended up being so far ahead of pace that I, like, took a sponsorship for, like, 8 hours of content in a completely different game in the, like, last week of the challenge or something. So I was sort of cruising. And one thing that I decided I wanted to do this time around, when I did it again in January, I started on January 2nd and ended January 31st, that is 30 days, is I decided I wanted to push myself really hard. I wasn't gonna dial back if I was ahead of pace. What I was gonna do instead was extend my goal and just get a higher number, more heart kills. And I ended up killing the heart 127 times, at around about 60% overall win rate. I think it was like 59.8 or something, but close enough. During that time, I set a rotating world record. I was 1 off my personal best with defect in a streak, and toward the end here, I started this silent streak, which didn't actually conclude until deep into February. Once I finished playing January, obviously I woke up the next morning and wasn't super excited to play 8 hours of Spire, so my rate of play fell off dramatically at the end of January. Which means that this streak was in a very strange context for me. The way that the month of January worked was, it took me a while to warm up, because I've been used to playing like runs that were 2 to 3 hours long, nice casual talking with chat, thinking things through, maybe opening up a spreadsheet to do some math or something once a day. And that just wasn't gonna be how it was gonna work for January. The goal for January was for runs to be more in the hour to hour and a half range, so we're talking about literally cutting out half of the run time. I think just the actions of pressing all of the buttons probably take like 20 to 30 minutes for run of Slay the Spire, depending on which deck you're playing. But like, I mean, some decks you literally press buttons for 10 minutes when you're doing some weird infinite, and other decks you're mostly thinking and only playing like 20 cards per fight. So it changes, but I think I was probably trying to work out how to cut out 60 to 70% of the time that I spent thinking while playing Slay the Spire in order to recalibrate for this month. And so at the beginning of the month, I did not win that many runs. I didn't have enough time to think about the things which were important, and my brain wasn't used to functioning in this way, so it wasn't identifying what was important very well. And in the middle of the month, when I dialed in, that was, I think, the best Spire that I've ever played. I went like 44 and 16, very, very, very close to holding 75% win rate rotating over 60 runs, which is obscene. I set a rotating world record. I went 18 and 1 on Watcher. I was 1 short of my defect personal best and the world record. And I was playing really, really well for a week and a half or so on there. And then my brain just started to break. And it was really fascinating to be in my head watching it happen. I don't actually remember a lot of it. Like, I think I legitimately stopped creating new memories. I was always like sleeping enough hours, but it like sort of stopped being I'm going to sleep 8 hours at night and started being like I'm going to sleep 4 hours, then I will be awake and I will play Slay the Spire, and then I will be exhausted and sleep for 3 hours, then I will be awake and play Slay the Spire. Like, my entire routine started to sort of break down. And I did not win a super high percentage of my runs for the last week or so of the challenge. So it's really interesting that this streak began then, when I was like really not with it. There were runs in here where I died purely because I did the math wrong in a fight. Actually, I feel like I'm pretty sure this run I like just took lethal damage from Collector with a leg sweep in hand that I didn't play. Well, I don't have leg sweep in this deck, so probably not. But I'm pretty sure that I like didn't play Survivor, or it was probably Dash, uncommon 2-cost block card. I just like let Collector deal lethal damage to me instead of playing my block card because my brain wasn't working. I played a defect run where I was right before an elite fight, which was 50% likely to be Gremlin Knob. There was no possible way I killed Gremlin Knob before turn 3. I had 20 health, and I just like upgraded a card and walked into it and died to Gremlin Knob. Like, rest? Hello? So this was awesome. It was really interesting to sort of explore the limits of my brain. I'm not sure I'm actually 100% recovered from it yet. We're like almost... We're 2.5 months after the fact now, and spring is in the air. I'm chilling out, going for walks, taking it easy. Starting to get back to normal, but it was a lot to kill 127 hearts at 60% overall win rate in 30 days. That was really hard. And so that's the context for this win streak, and when I eventually lost this win streak, it was like with a fairly considerable amount of relief. Because it went into February and it was like on my mind a little bit, like, oh, I still have that silent win streak, but I just don't want to think about Slay the Spire right now. So I think when I lost this streak eventually, it was pretty whatever. I didn't do super great in the run. I didn't make the best decisions, if I remember it. The history of the silent win streak is... I don't know. I can't remember exactly what happened way back in the day. I think Electrobolt had 5. Electrobolt did really well on silent for a while. This was before Ascension 20 and the heart even existed, I think. And then I had a 6 heart streak with silent, which stood as the world record, I think, for quite a while, actually. I think that was one of the longer standing world records that the game has had. With patch 2.2, silent got buffed incredibly hard, and a couple of players basically played silent exclusively after patch 2.2 came out, and so they were the first to get longer streaks on silent. I think Life Coach got 7, and then Revolution 9 got 9. I've even had like 8 first, and then got a 9 as well after. Some pretty impressive stuff. And this is a 9 streak, so I equaled that. I wasn't playing silent a ton at the time, so this month was sort of my first chance to really sink in and learn the changes to silent. The big thing is Blade Dance was changed from adding 2 shivs into your hand to 3, and upgrades to 4. can't see what it upgrades to here, but it upgrades to 4 shivs. And that drastically changes how Silent plays in a lot of runs. It's a very, very, very large deal. And there were lots of other accompanying buffs, largely to attack and discard synergies. So for example, accuracy used to make shivs deal 3 more damage, upgrade to 5. Now it makes shivs deal 4 more damage, upgrade to 6. So Blade Dance and associated synergies went from being fairly uncommon, but something that you'd build into if you found relics that made them really good. Like if I had a Shuriken and a Kunai, for example, I would probably think about taking a Blade Dance, especially a Blade Dance Plus in the Silent run. And you know, that's fine and interesting. Cards that are strong when you have the right relics for them, and so you get to mix up your strategies based on what relics you provided over the course of the run. That's cool. Now, Blade Dance is a common that deals 12 for 1 energy, and that is incredibly strong in Act 1. And on top of that, the extra Shiv from Blade Dance does a lot of things for you. It obviously procs Shuriken and Kunai and Ornamental Fan better. It makes After Image better. A huge interaction that it has is with Calculated Gamble. Calculated Gamble is one of Silent's strongest cards. The comparison to make with Calculated Gamble is to Scrawl for Watcher, where Scrawl lets you draw to a full hand, right? Well, if you have 7 cards in your hand, Scroll only actually draws you 4 cards, whereas Calculated Gamble discards the 6 other cards you don't want and draws you 6 cards. So if you're playing a deck that can have a full hand, Calculated Gamble is actually even better than Scroll is. Plus it costs 0 unupgraded. This card's really good. And coupled with something like an Acrobatics, Calculated Gamble makes Silent the fastest character to set up her powers and what have you, important cards, Apotheosis, stuff like that. The highest percentage of the time, I would say. Silent is very able to speed through her deck on turn 1, coupled with her starter relic, which is the best starter relic of the 4 characters in my opinion, fairly easily. And, you know, commons like Acrobatics, uncommon like Calculated Gamble, these aren't even rares, so Silent's very, very, very good at that, and with Blade Dance, you can play a Blade Dance and have 3 cards in your hand, or 4 cards in your hand, and then discard them with Calculated Gamble. So Blade Dance, it isn't even just the best attack that Silent has, it's also an incredibly powerful card draw card because of the way that synergies work. It's an incredibly good block card because of things like Ornamental Fan and After Image. It's just an insanely powerful card when you give it that extra boost of 1 more Shiv. It's a massive buff. It's a 50% increase to what the card does, and this is a common. It went from being one of Silent's worst commons to Silent's very clear best common. So, that happened. And looking through this streak, I'm still not sure. I'm still not as confident as I used to be about walking the tightrope that Silent walks between playing tons and tons of attack damage to deal damage, playing tons and tons of poison type stuff to deal damage, and playing a hybrid of the 2. Because you can absolutely deal damage with Silent all 3 of those ways. You can even deal damage with Silent other ways as well. But those would be the 3 main ones available to you via cards, I'd say. And working out which one to go for in each run is pretty experience-based, I would say. Like, it's not something you can sit down and look at the card pool and just decide based on what the cards say. You've got to actually have tried playing lots of different runs with lots of different strategies and start to get a sense for how they work and where their limits are. An example would be a lot of people look at Shivs and say, these are cool, but I won't ever be able to beat Time Eater and I won't be able to beat the Heart because Time Eater punishes me for playing lots of cards and the Heart does too. The Heart deals damage to me every time I play a card. And, well, that isn't true. Like, you can absolutely beat Time Eater and the Heart with Shiv-focused strategies. This is what turns out to be the case. Silent's capable of blocking and scaling well enough to make those shivs work. But you need some experience with the cards set up as they are, and for me, I had a lot more experience with Silent when Blade Dance cost, or when Blade Dance made 2 shivs, than I do now with Blade Dance making 3 shivs. So I feel less comfortable on the character even after 6 months on the patch. It's just like the experience of 2.5 years versus the experience of 6 months. Makes sense. So yeah, it will be interesting to look through these runs and get a sense for what I was thinking, what decisions I was making, see if I agree with them now, 2.5 months later, and hopefully slightly more capable of rational thought than I was at the tail end of my month of insanity. So immediately on floor 1, we kill some small slimes. I'm not going to be boss relic trading with Silent usually. I know we just looked at Ironclad and I boss relic swapped every single time, and I think it's a strong thing to do in Ironclad. Not necessarily something you should do every time, but certainly a strong thing to do. I think that boss relic swapping on Silent is very bad. I think the situations where you could conceivably do it are if you have 3 bad alternate whale bonuses and you're looking at like the best possible situation, we'll say, for boss relic swap would be you're looking at an act with slime boss at the end, which Silent struggles to kill with just her card pool and starter relic, so you're hoping to swap into a boss relic that will help you kill the slime boss somehow. And also, you have one path that's like lots of elites and will need you to be really strong to take it, but you also have another path that's very safe and has plenty of like campfires and events to upgrade cards and get strong without needing to be able to kill tons of elites. That's the best possible situation for a boss relic swap for Silent. And even there, I would fairly happily take a different good whale bonus, because this relic is just so good. I see like players who are new to the game complaining that Silent's starter relic is only Bag of Preparation. Bag of Preparation is just a common relic that draws you 2 cards and that's all that Silent gets. And like, on the one hand, yes, but on the other hand, Bag of Prep is probably the best common relic in the game. It's better than most uncommon and rare relics too, I think. And with Silent, you can get both of them. So you can draw an additional 4 cards at the start of each combat, have a 9-card starting hand. That's really strong. Turn 1 is the first turn of every fight, and so it matters quite a lot. Turn 2 doesn't necessarily even happen. A lot of fights can end before turn 2, but turn 1 matters quite a bit. So, anyway, as we get started, we don't unfortunately know what whale bonus I took, which makes it a little bit tricky, but we walk into slimes and we kill them and we get offered Terror, Flying Knee, and Outmaneuver. And I think this is actually immediately interesting because Flying Knee versus Terror is not a super clear pick. And I don't think anyone can fully confidently know what the right answer here is. But generally speaking, if you're in a universe where often Silent wants to win the end of the run using poison damage, Terror is not as exciting a card. And Flying Knee does damage for your early elite fights, which is great, and also is a more exciting card for your deck that has poison to win with later, because it lets you set up big turns with its extra energy on the next turn mechanic. Terror, of course, can still be used to clear artifact charges, so it's not like it's a worthless card if you're using exclusively poison damage, and also if you are using exclusively poison damage, you can still always add a skewer, and then all of a sudden you're also dealing a ton of attack damage. But yeah, there have definitely been times in my life where I would take Flying Knee here and times in my life where I would take Terror here. And it looks like this time I took Terror, but I think they're both doing the thing that's immediately necessary, which is preparing you for the Act 1 elites. And so I guess the question is, which one is the better solution for the thing that is immediately necessary. And the reason that Terror might be is that it's a better solution for later. It's going to help you do the thing you want to do later. The reason that Flying Knee might be is it's perhaps arguably a little bit better against sentries. It helps you out if you don't get a 4th energy at the end of the act. It helps you function in a variety of different strategies. Synergizes with Shuriken and Kunai better, stuff like that. Anyway, we got Warped Tongues on floor 2. Incidentally, I think that out of all of the win streaks I'm going to look at, the Silent win streak is the one where I have the most above average luck. Generally, it's just going to be true that when you have a win streak, you have above average luck. If you consider that the player, myself, is mostly staying the same from run to run, the thing that is mostly responsible for me having a world record streak is going to be me getting luckier than I usually am. I won't say that that's necessarily like fully the case, because there's also the fact that toward the end of a streak I'm going to be spending 3 or 4 hours per run thinking at great detail about all the things that are going on, whereas at the beginning of a streak I'm going to be spending like an hour and a half and chilling with people in chat. But, you know, some of it is definitely that you get lucky during a win streak. And floor 2 Warped Tongues is a very, very lucky start to a win streak for sure. This is an excellent relic. Excellent relic to get at any point in the run, and even better to get it early because the upgrades matter so much early on. It lets you start snowballing just straight away, and I was able to get to a store to remove the pain very quickly as well. So, floor 3, we take a Flex Potion and a Slice. Sort of have to take the Slice here. I need to have enough damage to kill elites. It's also just sort of an okay card. Silent tends to have a lot of card draw. One thing that I've noticed about Silent in 2.2 is that the card draw is easier to take than it used to be. The cards it lets you draw are better, and you yourself are stronger, and so spending time and energy to draw cards is more powerful. You get better returns on that than you used to in earlier patches. And so Slice is a 0-cost card, plays very nicely with card draw. It used to be that Acrobatics was a card that I would take after I was confident that I was surviving the Act 2 elite fights, and now it's more like Acrobatics is a card that I take on floor 1 if I want to sometimes. Like, card draw has just gotten much, much, much stronger as Silence card pool has been buffed. So, anyway, Slices, I mean, we needed the attack anyway to get through the elite fights that are coming up, so not really a super close call, I don't think. And then I'm offered Deadly Poison, Deflect, Eviscerate after fighting this louse. I think... So clearly I'm not completely committed to dealing attack damage to win the run if I'm taking Deadly Poison over Eviscerate. I think Deadly Poison is sort of abstractly a stronger damage card than Eviscerate is. It's very hard to make Eviscerate do great things. Eviscerate's exact numbers, because I barely know off the top of my head myself, so I'm imagining that a lot of my viewers won't know exact numbers off the top of their heads. I don't think that's true. This wiki says that it deals 7 damage 3 times for 3 energy. As of patch 2.2. Okay, no, that is true. Oh, I see. The upgraded one deals 9. So, yeah, this is one of the cards that was actually buffed in version 2.2. Maybe one of the reasons I didn't take it is that I'm sort of still thinking of it dealing only 18 instead of 21, but I think 21 for 3 isn't that bad, and this is a character that starts with Survivor and has access to Acrobatics and Dagger Throw at common, so it's reasonable to think that I'll be able to deal 21 for 2 with it fairly often. Plus I have a Terror already, so I'm sort of surprised that I took Deadly Poison over Eviscerate there. But maybe I'm still thinking that Poison tends to be the strongest way to solve late game damage questions, and that's why I'm doing it. Or maybe my Whale bonus made me good against the elites other than Lagavulin. Deadly Poison's pretty good against Lagavulin. Upgraded it as well. We got an early Catalyst over Leg Sweep. Ow. Is this how you're meant to play? I'm a little bit surprised that I took Catalyst over Leg Sweep there, honestly. Maybe I can learn something from past Jorbs here, though. Even though my mind was addled and broken, I was sort of dialed in after a month of playing. Maybe I'm not taking damage aggressively enough at the start of runs with Silent at the moment. I've lost like my last 2 or 3 Silent runs, so I'm open to the idea that I need to change how I'm playing. It's funny, on floor 8 we upgrade Catalyst, and on floor 10 we upgrade Terror. Make up your mind, maybe? It's actually completely fine. Like, the damage types play fairly well together. In multi-enemy fights, we can deal one sort of damage to one enemy and the other sort of damage to the other, like put Deadly Poison on one and then hit it with Catalyst and it's dead, and then we kill the other one with Strikes and Terror. And in single enemy fights, it's okay. All of the damage goes on the enemy, right? Like, just because it doesn't all synergize with all the other damage, the fact that some of it synergizes with some of the other bits makes it stronger overall. Go into a Sentries fight, win the fight, take Leg Sweep over Skewer. Skewer's a really interesting card. If I'd taken Leg Sweep over Catalyst back here, I would have, I think, absolutely been taking Skewer. But the deck is a little bit too tilted toward damage, I'm feeling, so taking the Leg Sweep is good too. Interesting to note that I picked up Ginger in the chest earlier. Maybe that's why I upgraded Terror. Maybe I wasn't planning to upgrade Terror, and then I picked up Ginger and I was like, oh wow, like my attack-based damage is just significantly stronger now, so I should be thinking about doing more of that. Got a Golden Idol, another solid Relic, and Shuriken from Ranwood, which is an excellent relic, although it's a relic that wants me to be killing things with attacks. Killed the Slavers, took Deflect over Cloak and Dagger, despite having Shuriken, which I think is really interesting. I think the reason that I'm doing that is that I've already decided that I'm not taking Snecko Eye this run. Like, I just will not be taking that relic unless everything else is awful. I've already decided that I think the run is strong enough to win Act 2 on 3 energy. And so I'm preparing myself to win the unlucky runs from here. I think that my damage that I got early is great, my Leg Sweep is an incredibly high quality card, my Warped Tongues are awesome, they're upgrading my cards constantly in every combat, and I already have a Deadly Poison and a Catalyst. So I already have pretty much like half of what I need to deal late game damage as well. And so in that situation, I'm thinking, like, I want to be able to win off any boss relic, pretty much. And taking a Deflect is a nice way to make it easier for me to win off the non-energy boss relics. Like, if I have to take Tiny House, I'm pretty happy to have taken Deflect. It's unlikely I have to take Tiny House, but I think taking Deflect over Cloak and Dagger implies that I think I have a very good chance of winning the run already. Kill Guardian, we get a Malaise over Nightmare and Glass Knife. Nightmare is pretty good with Catalyst Plus, but the deck's not really needing that yet, and also not really capable of defending itself while setting that up. You want to have, like, I don't know, a Horn Cleat or something so that you can play your Nightmare and Catalyst and not die that turn. Glass Knife is a pretty solid attack card, but Malaise is just very premium on Silent. The biggest things that Malaise does are it makes Act 2 difficult hallway fights a lot better. There's an 8x3 attack in hallway fights, there are the 1x6 bird attacks, there's an enemy that hits you for 7x2 all the time. So it's very good going into Act 2. There's also in Act 2 the Gremlin Leader hitting you for n×3. There's the Book of Stabbing hitting you for 7x(n). And so both of those enemies are pretty decent to have Malaise against, although I think it's less exciting against Gremlin Leader by a good margin than it is against Book of Stabbing. And then Malaise isn't that insane against the Act 2 bosses, like it's fine against Champ. so against Collector. It's actually very, very, very good against Awakened One and Time Eater and the Heart, though. And that's like basically 3 out of the 4 bosses that you fight at the end of the game. So getting 1 malaise into your deck is really nice to have coverage for all of those fights. All of the things that I just mentioned can be quite difficult. So it's not just good in lots of places, it's good in lots of difficult places as well. And we take Pandora's Box from the boss reward, which is very common at this point in Slay the Spire. Very, very common to want to take Pandora's Box. I think Ironclad doesn't want Pandora's Box as much as the other 3 characters, but is still very happy to take it. And on Silent Defect and Watcher, Pandora's Box is just incredible. Silent benefits very much because Silent starts with 10 basic cards instead... Wait, 9 basic cards. 9 basic cards instead of 8? Does Silent start with 10? No, Silent does start with 10. Silent starts with 10 basic cards instead of 8, so Silent is getting rid of 2 more basics than other characters, and also Silent's general cards are just quite useful at this point in Slay the Spire's balance history. Defect loves Pandora's Box to get rid of the basics, and because Defect has very, very, very good accessibility to energy from cards, so you don't need to take energy boss relics on Defect nearly as much as you do on other characters. Or at least on Ironclad and Silent, I'd say. And then Watcher... Every Watcher card is insanely strong, and getting rid of your strikes and defense on Watcher just feels like turning into a superhero. Watcher runs tend to like start slow, and then every time you remove another basic from your deck gets exponentially better. Because not only do Watcher's cards which aren't strikes and defends end up being very, very good, but also they all synergize with each other. And so drawing 3 cards that aren't strikes and defends instead of 2 cards that aren't strikes and defends in your hand lets you do significantly more with your turn. But yeah, we take Pandora's Box. Let's see if it says what it is. Backstab, Catalyst, Double Malaise, Heel Hook, Crippling Cloud, Phantasmal Killer, Dagger Throw, Piercing Wail, Bane. So a little bit light on cards that say block on them. None of these cards say block on them, in fact. But we have Piercing Wail, we now have 3 Malaises in our deck, and we have 2 Catalysts and a Crippling Cloud to go with the Deadly Poison Plus that we had earlier. So this deck actually is very close to already filling the endgame challenges. Could use a Wraith form or some other way to survive, but very, 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 very powerful deck off of this Pandora's Box. A lot of people see a Pandora's Box like that and say something or react with, oh my god, I'm going to die, I don't have any block cards. But the truth is, the 5 defends that you had in your deck at the start of the run aren't very good. They are generally not going to be enough to block against the challenging enemies in the game. So you already didn't have enough block cards. And then this has just made you so much stronger in so many different ways. So that's cool. Going into Act 2, hit a Deadly Poison early, keep going on the Deadly Poisons, take an Enchiridion, so 2 acts in a row where I get a strong Relic on floor 2, although I'm down to 21 health. Calculated Gamble is very, very strong here. There's so many different things we can seek to set up. Footwork is nice as well. It might seem weird to be taking Footwork here when I have, what, 2 block cards in my deck? I have Leg Sweep, Deflect, and Survivor at this point, so 3. Having like 2 to 3 footworks is just one of the ways that you can block for enough at the end of the game, though. And the card is fine. Even if you don't end up solving your endgame block puzzle with footwork, it's an okay card. Even if you're going to be intangible for 8 turns, you might want a footwork to block for enough while you find your intangible cards, or something like that. It's just generally good. And if you have your damage already worked out, which we do with Catalysts, and if we have our card draw already worked out, which we pretty much do with Pandora's Box removing all of our basics and this Calculated Gamble, Acrobatics and Backflips are commons for Silent, right? So we can find more. At that point, the only thing to really be thinking about is how are we going to survive long enough to actually win with these cards. And so picking up a footwork is a great idea, even if it's not immediately going to solve that problem for you. It's one step in the right direction. And then immediately on floor 21, we take a blur. So there's one more block card for us. On floor 22, we take an escape plan. The deck has a lot of skills, so it's going to hit a lot of the time. The block card for us. Managed to make our way down to 6 HP here before resting, and then got a 0 damage Gremlin leader fight. So that was fortunate. Picked up a meat on the bone and an upgraded catalyst from this fight. I wonder if I have so many catalysts that taking dodge and roll is better. Probably not. Upgrade footwork, get kunai. I now have shuriken and kunai, but obviously with 3 catalysts and like crippling cloud and deadly poison and calculated gamble, we don't really need to think very hard about scaling our strength. The kunai giving us dexterity is like sort of cute, but it's also very slow compared to how fast our damage is, so it's not a very large concern. Noxious Fumes is great. Noxious Fumes is really nice in poison decks because not only does it make some poison for you to like triple with Catalyst or whatever, which means that it's dealing way more damage than it seems like it is, right? It applies 2 poison, but then if you triple that 2 poison 3 times, instead you have 64 poison or whatever. 54 poison? 54 poison? How does that work? Isn't that 2 to the 9? Or is it 2 times 3 to the 3? Nope. Well, whatever, my brain's not doing math right now, but yeah. Math on camera is something you should always aspire to avoid as a person who speaks to a camera without like heavy editing. So not only does it apply the poison, but also Noxious Fumes just kills artifact charges for you. Matters in the Act 4 Elite fight, against Stone and Deca, against the Heart, against some enemies in Act 2, against Automaton at the end of Act 2. Tons of reasons to care about being able to strip artifact charges from enemies in this game. We got a Dead Branch from the Taskmaster. Took 35 damage, fortunately, but yep. And also took a Blade Dance to go with our Shuriken, Kunai, and Dead Branch. There is concern from people a lot of the time that if you take Dead Branch on Silent or on any character, you're just going to end up putting a bunch of junk in your deck that you don't want, and you'll lose. That is not a thing you have to think about even a little bit when you have 3 copies of Catalyst. You're going to put a bunch of junk in your deck, and then the fight will already be over. That's what's going to happen. So really what Dead Branch is doing is it's creating more cards for us. All of our cards which exhaust are now going to exhaust into a different card, which might be useful. Might not be useful, but it could be an Adrenaline, or it could be a Bullet Time and we get to play every card in our hand, or it could be like a Wraith Form and we're intangible for 2 turns. There's nothing saying that Dead Branch has to make you bad cards. It can make you good cards as well. Also, even bad cards can be useful sometimes. Sometimes you just need to deal 8 damage to something, so getting a Quick Slash is fine. Yeah, and then also Blade Dance obviously procs Shuriken and Kunai, although how much that matters is a little bit questionable. I think the big thing that I'm trying to do at the moment as I upgrade Catalyst instead of resting before collecting, pretty exciting. The big thing that I'm trying to do at the moment is make sure that I can block enough to win the run. At the end of the act, I take a Busted Crown here, which is interesting. Busted Crown obviously implies that I think I have enough to win the run without many more card rewards. Which, I mean, looking at how the run has gone so far, I think that's pretty reasonable. Probably need like 1 good defensive potion or something, but don't need a ton. Of course, after taking Busted Crown, I never skip a single card. I skipped Dodge and Roll, which is probably even wrong. Take Acrobatics. Purchase Potion Belt and Frozen Eye. Frozen Eye is an incredibly powerful relic. When I was talking through the Ironclad win streak, I talked at some length about how at high difficulty you need to be able to match certain cards to certain situations. You can't rely on having a purely linear strategy nearly as often as you can at low difficulties, and instead you need to be thinking, how am I going to draw Piercing Wail on the turn where I get multi-attacked, and things like that. And so Frozen Eye is just incredibly powerful for helping you to do that. And if you look at my deck list, it's easy to see that there are tons of different cards that do very different things in this deck, and so being able to draw one on the right turn, draw one turn earlier by playing one card over another, draw one turn later by not playing an Acrobatics, stuff like that can make a huge difference. Frozen Eye is very commonly the best relic that you can get. Very commonly. It's very we obtained a Bottled Lightning, which I'm going to guess is either on Calculated Gamble or Malaise, although I'm not sure it says, unfortunately. Good Dodge and Roll plus, took a Deflect again. Got a Mango. Mango's great, that's a solid defensive relic. I skipped another Dodge and Roll, that's funny. Reserved Insect a little bit late in the run. Pocket Watch and Acrobatics, that's awesome, that's extra card draw to help us get through stuff. Beat Awakened One in 11 turns, taking 12 damage. That's Footwork. Footwork and Malaise are doing that for us. Probably more Malaise than Footwork, actually. And then beat Donu Deka in 5 turns, taking 30 damage. And that's Catalyst. that would be Catalyst, killing them really quick. Rest in Act 4. Purchase a Concentrate. This deck has been struggling for energy for the entirety of the run, basically, after taking no third energy at the end of Act 1. And getting no energy in Relics. This deck is just struggling to play all of its cards, and it has lots of good cards. We beat up Shield and Spear, get a Ghostman Jar as well, which is pretty incredible, and beat the Corrupt Heart with 31 health to spare. Which honestly might have been the Ghost in a Jar difference. I think this was a pretty good run. I don't necessarily mean that I made every decision perfectly. What I mean by that is that compared to analyzing my Ironclad world record streak, where a lot of runs were just like, oh, and I have Reaper now, so very little matters. This run, it really feels like the deck was evolving for the entirety of the run. It was in danger from pretty much all of the fights over the entirety of the run, more or less, if it drew poorly and stuff. It doesn't have enough sustain that it just like gets to undo any mistakes or bad draws. Meat on the Bone healed for 132 though, worth noting. Very good relic. And then yeah, eventually managed to beat the Heart fight in a fight that looks like it could have gone either way. So, good run. Good run to start. Next run was 3 hours and 40 minutes after that run started. So I managed to win that run, and then I probably won one other run and lost the other 2 and got back to Silent again. During the course of this month I was playing the characters rotating, so Ironclad Silent, Defect Watcher, Iron Silent, Defect Watcher, over and over and over again. Alright, what happens in this one? I did look through all of the Silent runs, but I didn't take super great notes. Start with Flying Knee, get an oddly smooth stone, and then an early Corpse Explosion gives us so much power. With Corpse Explosion, you think about Gremlin Leader, Slavers. These are 2 pretty challenging fights in Act 2, which all of a sudden are nowhere near as challenging. And once you have Corpse Explosion, you have the luxury of starting to think about other things, because those aren't going to kill you anymore. So already you can start trying to round out your other fights. You can take block cards much more highly than before. Corpse Explosion deals so much damage. It's a very good upgrade too. applying more poison to something which will blow up and kill everything else when it dies is useful because it makes it blow up faster. So, great card, good pickup. It's a very early rare on floor 4. Got a dodge and roll, which is nice. Like I said, you can take block potions or block cards, defensive cards a little bit more highly. And then against sentries, you pick up Omamori and Tools of the Trade. Tools of the Trade is a really interesting card. It doesn't do anything until the turn after you play it. And even when you start the turn after you play it, all it does is draw a card and then discard a card, which means you had to draw it to play it, right? So you drew Tools of the Trade and paid 1 energy for it. And then on the next turn, it drew a card. So you're back to even on your cards drawn, but you had to discard one. So even a turn after you've played it, you're like even on cards, you've discarded 1 card and paid 1 energy. That's what it's done for you so far. It's one of the slowest powers in the game. I have been liking it a little bit more in 2.2 than I used to. But maybe I'm being too generous to it, I'm not sure. One thing that's nice is that a lot of the cards that interact with discarding were buffed a little bit, so that helps it out a little bit. Also, just general buffs to Silent mean that she is more capable of deploying cards which are slow scaling cards at the start of fights. She's less likely to die if she tries to do that, and so all of the slow scaling stuff gets a little bit better. There's a concept in card games, I think it's used in Magic the Gathering, although I remember it from playing Dominion competitively, actually. Most of all. There's a concept of going low or going high, where a lot of the time the mechanics of a card game allow you to sort of output something very linearly at a fast rate, or they allow you to build up and output something exponentially, where it takes you a while to get going, but once you get going, you get stronger. And this is very present in Slay the Spire. There are cards that do something immediately and linearly, and there are cards which do something exponentially and slowly, but because it's exponential, that slow value eventually becomes overwhelming. And usually, you do need some of those exponential cards to win the late game fights. Usually, your linear stuff isn't going to be enough. You have like Terror and Necronomicon with Chemical X. Skewer might just kill everything for you. For example, that would be a situation where linear was plenty. But a lot of the time, I would say more frequently, having some exponential stuff in your deck helps out a lot. And Tools of the Trade is just like, it is an exponential thing, it's just one of the worst ones. That's all. So, I guess I can always give it away if I decide I don't want it anymore at the like Spirit Bonfire event if I get to one. I think taking Skewer there would be completely fine, and I'm not sure why I didn't. Anyway, probably because I was exhausted and stuff. And go through the rest of the act, get a bunch of relics and stuff, get a dagger throw, get a skill potion, get a blur, sure, why not? I think that blur is an okay card. Blur has a significant amount of value against Automaton in particular. It's pretty good against Slime Boss, who I am fighting in this act. It's not that good against like Act 2 elites, but like I said about picking up Corpse Explosion, I'm already in a situation where I'm pretty good against Act 2 elites. I would say better than usual against Act 2 elites because of how powerful that Corpse Explosion is. And so I'm able to take cards which sort of have nebulous value later. This is a way to solve blocking that is not actually that good at doing it right now, but may become very powerful later in the run. And yeah, I think because I'm ahead of the curve, I get to do that a little bit more. If I didn't have Corpse Explosion, I'd take Dagger Spray here, and it's, you know, fine. But I do have Corpse Explosion. Upgrade Neutralize, because I haven't found any other weak yet. Throughout the month, I was trying to upgrade Neutralize far less than I usually did on Silent, with the reason being that Leg Sweep and Crippling Cloud are just both very good cards, which sort of counterfeit the Neutralize upgrade. And what I mean by that is they make it not have value anymore. It's poker terminology, counterfeiting, something like that. So if you don't get those uncommons, then sure, you probably want to upgrade your Neutralize. But if you do get one of those uncommons, which is usually going to happen at some point, all of a sudden your Neutralize upgrade doesn't seem so great. World of Goop gave me some gold. Took 4 damage against Gremlin Knob. Must have had good potions, because it doesn't feel like this deck is incredibly good at killing Gremlin Knob. And rested and beat Slime Boss. Slime Boss is very tough for Silent a lot of the time. I'm personally surprised that I took Tools of the Trade over Skewer in the Slime Boss act. That just seems sort of insane to me. Anyway, we got an Alchemize from the Slime Boss fight. Alchemize is another one of those cards. In fact, it's even more so a card that gives you value over time. Alchemize might not even give you anything during the fight that you're in, but it can give you a potion on your potion belt, which you can then use in a later fight. So Alchemize is another card that has gotten stronger as Silent has gotten stronger, because you have more and more fights which are easy, where you can afford to bank a resource for later. Envenom and Bullet Time are both quite poor anyway, so it's not like I was excited to be taking those instead. Took a Fusion Hammer, means no more upgrades. No upgrades is most damaging, I would say, to trying to win the run with Catalyst. Hard to try to win the run with Catalyst if you can't upgrade the Catalysts. The Catalyst upgrade is a tremendous amount of damage. More damage than any of the other upgrades in the game, probably. Looking at my deck, I noticed that I ended up winning the run with Catalyst anyway, so good job me. I don't know what the other boss relics were there, but just worth noting that Fusion Hammer is a bit painful to be taking there. Poison decks can often win by like playing 6 cards total or something. Like that's all they need to kill the heart, and so being able to upgrade those 6 cards makes everything a lot easier for you. They go Well-Laid Plans from Shelled Parasite, which is fine. Well-Laid Plans used to cost 0, now costs 1, making it one of the few cards in the game that's actually gotten worse over the course of the last couple of years. Still a very powerful card. If we end up with a burst later, which turns out we did, that lets us burst a Catalyst perhaps, stuff like that. It's just a very nice thing to have if you're strong enough to get away with it. And then Ancient Writing happened on floor 19, and I think this is probably where we actually won the run. Ancient Writing is, I think, just straight up the best event in the game. We got 10 upgrades from this, which is a lot of upgrades. The place that it happens in Act 2 is early enough that your upgrades on strikes are going to be relevant for elite fights still, which is, you know, awesome. And your upgrades on defense are such that they actually become good cards even late in the game. Like, if you think about the Awakened One fight, it's pretty normal to get attacked for 30 or so, and it's pretty normal to have 4 energy at that point. So playing defend actually is enough block value per energy to stand up against Awakened One late game. It doesn't do as well without help against the Heart or against the Act 4 elites even, but you're also able to help your defense. Ironclad gets Corruption and Feel No Pain, Silent gets Dexterity, obviously. Defect doesn't love Ancient Writing as much as the other characters, but is still pretty happy with it. And honestly, the event doesn't do that much for Watcher, but, you know, Watcher. Nothing does. Watcher just wins with anything. Watcher's still very, very happy to upgrade all of her strikes and defense, is the actual truth. But she'll probably try to remove every single one of them from her deck by the end of the run anyway, and that's fine too. So, that's great. Now we're very, very strong all of a sudden. We get a Calculated Gamble and Tropic Brew, even stronger. We get a Nilry's Codex, even stronger. We buy a Catalyst and a Bouncing Flask and remove a Strike Plus, so I clearly have an idea of how I want to win the run. I imagine that I'm thinking, you know, I may hit an apotheosis, I may hit some way to upgrade my cards at some point in the run as I do this, but even if I don't, the deck is able to stall pretty well already with upgraded defense, has a well-laid plans, it's fairly well set up to kill things with Catalyst. Skipping Deflect, getting Aurichalcum, which is okay. We rest, we heal for 15 at the Merchant, we take the key from the treasure, and we grab a Piercing Whale Plus. I think this is the first time I've talked about Piercing Whale. Piercing Whale is very good. Should usually take this card when it is offered to you. The reason that Piercing Whale is so good is that some of the hardest turns in the game involve more than one attack being thrown at you. And Piercing Whale can block for like 40 on those turns. The second turn of the Act 4 Elite fight, for example, it's quite normal for Piercing Whale to block for 52? No. Less. Slightly less. 44 or something. So, that is a premium block card for that turn, of course. Now, there are a ton of turns where Piercing Whale isn't as good of a block card, but like I mentioned with Defend Plus, there are a lot of turns in the game where blocking 8 for 1 energy is just enough. Like, that's enough of a ratio to be not taking damage. And block doesn't do that much if you're having more of it than is needed to take damage anyway. So, this card is usually quite good. Notably doesn't deal damage, so if you desperately need to deal damage, you shouldn't be taking Piercing Whales. Notably doesn't block better than Wraith Form does, so if you already have a Wraith Form or two, not as much reason to be taking Piercing Whales. Notably requires that you strip artifact charges, so if you don't have any ways to strip artifact charges, Piercing Whale is much worse. But in general, it's a pretty good card. Beat Snecko, take a backflip, 4 energy, backflip plus is great. Grab a Lantern. Lantern's a very good relic when you have a 7-card starting hand. Probably a pretty good relic the rest of the time as well. It's removing strikes at merchants. Or strike plus. It tries so hard, you know? I actually recalled on floor 32. That's funny. I mean, I can't upgrade. So, I guess it makes sense. Took 5 damage from Bronze Automaton. And I took a Coffee Dripper, so now I actually can't rest or upgrade at campfires, but I guess I was feeling pretty confident at this point. And I think the reason that I'm doing so solidly here, going through the run, is largely still the upgraded defense. I also have like just a pretty fast deck with a lot of damage from poison. Made it through Act 4, taking very, very, very little damage. And actually came very close to dying to the heart, but didn't quite. It took 8 turns to kill the heart, so that implies that I had a pretty bad draw. Because this deck, if it goes Bouncing Blast, Catalyst, Catalyst, and then Bouncing Blast Catalyst the next turn or something is going to kill the heart in like 5 or 6 turns. So we had significantly slower damage than our optimal. But that's understandable. Yeah, not a ton else to say about this run. Silent decks feel like they exhibit a lot of their personality from how the fights actually play out. They sort of look like clumps of cards when you look at them, and this is, I think, pretty normal for silent decks. But then when you're actually in the run playing the deck, it can become very obvious to you that, like, oh, this is the run where I desperately need dodge and roll. This is the run where I desperately need Piercing Whale. This is the run where I desperately need Deflect. And it might not look like that looking at the deck list, and sometimes also all 3 of those are just completely fine. But there are silent runs where it's a very big difference taking the right common that your deck needs to actually solve the problems that it's having. This is our first Blade Dance run of the streak, so I talked some length at the start here about how Blade Dance was made stronger, but I won the first two just with 3 copies of Catalyst each or something. Is that true? 3 Catalysts plus 3 Catalysts. Yeah, so lots of Catalysts. This time around, though, it's Blade Dance time. So we start with a slice. Actually took 150 gold from the Serpent. Grabbed a footwork early. Removed the doubt and bought toolbox and Sneaky Strike. Sneaky Strike, not a huge winner, but it does deal 12 damage, and if you have to kill an elite, sometimes you need that. Removed a strike at the wing statue. Upgraded Neutralize to survive Gremlin Knob and stuff. Took a Predator over Blade. That's interesting. I mean, I think that's probably okay with how much difficulty we're having dealing damage. Did I already have Ice Cream? I did already have Ice Cream. Huh. I think Past Me was playing badly. That's my honest opinion. I don't know though, maybe I'm undervaluing Predator and overvaluing Blade Dance. Past Me definitely did win, so. I took an outmaneuver on floor 13. I have Ice Cream, which makes it a little bit more sensible. I also already have a Predator. And outmaneuver is a card that I used to think was just absolute garbage, just very bad, because I needed all of my energy to stay alive this turn, and having extra energy next turn wasn't even going to give me particularly good cards to play. But as all of these cards have gotten buffed, all of a sudden outmaneuver starts to be pretty good, because I have an extra energy this turn, and I can spend an extra energy next turn to play a really good card. In general on 2.2, more so than any other patch, but I think this is a general trend over time. The cards which create energy for characters have just gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. And that interacts with all sorts of other things. There's the fact that the energy gets spent on stronger cards when you make it, so they have more value in that way. There's also the fact that Pandora's Box and other ways to transform cards have gotten better. And so you're often taking Pandora's Box or Astrolabe, what's its name? Yeah, Astrolabe, over an energy relic. So having, you know, that's going to put a bunch of good cards in your deck to play, but you don't have energy to do it. So outmaneuver's gotten a lot stronger. Collect for Watcher has gotten a lot stronger. Bloodletting has gotten a lot stronger. Turbo has gotten a lot stronger. Turbo was already very good for Defect, but it's even better now. Yep. We grab Backflip. Backflip's nice with outmaneuver. Card draw and energy is the general vibe of the deck right now. We've got the Ice Cream, of course. Mentioned that already, but mention it again. Managed to take 40 damage over 9 turns from Hexaghost, which is unfortunate, but also we didn't die, so I guess it's fine. And took an Alchemize again over Tools of the Trade and Venom, which I think are both pretty mediocre, so that seems fine. And then we opened the Pandora's Box at the end of this act and got Finisher, Sucker Punch, All Out Attack, Burst, 1000 Cuts, Alchemize number 2, Bane, Accuracy, and Poison Stab. Almost no block in that at all. Lots and lots of attacks though. So all of a sudden we're playing a deck that's trying to smork its way through Act 2 pretty hard. Again, it might look concerning because I don't have much block on my deck, but I also don't have any strikes and defense, so my deck is actually pretty good. Get through Spheric Guardian and pick up a Blade Dance Plus. Nice start to the act. I actually took damage on Forgotten Altar, which is... Am I actually insane? I took damage on Forgotten Altar going to 27 health with Hallway, Hallway Elite ahead of me? Oh, okay. So I think what happened is I actually had a campfire path that I was able to take to heal back up, but at the event I got Bonfire Spirits and just gave away 1000 cuts for a full heal. So that's fortunate. Like I said at the start of this, I think that my silent world record streak is the luckiest of all of the streaks that I've played. But yeah, that's a little bit unreasonable. We can dodge and roll, so I actually have a block card now. Take a Piercing Wail, another block card-ish. Rest back to full, and beat Book of Stabbing, taking 1 damage over 3 turns. Interesting. Probably some potions were involved there. Got a Mercury Hourglass, got a Horn Cleat from Taskmaster, taking 9 damage over 3 turns. Probably a Piercing Wail involved there. Grab another Blade Dance. Got a Cultist Potion from this hallway fight, so we're ready for the boss fight already. An outmaneuver for our Ice Cream. Ink Bottle is incredibly good, especially with Blade Dance. Actually, that's another relic that I should have probably mentioned when talking about how much stronger Blade Dance gets when it plays 1 more card for you. But Blade Dance Plus draws half a card with Ink Bottle. Without any other like interactions or anything, just with Ink Bottle it draws half a card. Pretty crazy. Actually upgraded accuracy going into this boss fight, and I managed to take 70 damage from Bronze Automaton over 7 turns, which is, I mean, it looks bad, but also that's sort of as much damage as you can take from Bronze Automaton over 7 turns. It's pretty hard to take more damage than that, so I don't think I was actually in much danger here. It's just, yeah. Funny, I entered the fight at exactly 17. Where did my 11 health come from? Maybe I used a regen pot? I have a blood vial. Oh, I have a pantograph. Yeah, that would be it. And we got a Runic Dome. So Runic Dome is energy. It means I'm making 4 energy a turn. It also means I can't see what enemies are doing. I talked about this a lot in the Ironclad World Record Streak video. Maybe watch that one before continuing to watch this one, because apparently I'm not going to re-explain everything. But the basic jive is that at high difficulty we need to be able to match the right card for the right situation, and if we can't tell which situation we're in, that's a lot harder. So Runic Dome definitely has a downside, but this deck is, I guess, or was, I guess, in my opinion, linear enough and strong enough that I could get away with it. So going through Act 3, all of this stuff is pretty easy so far. Reptimancer took 1 damage. Deck's just like strong enough, right? And I got the Gremlin Horn from Reptimancer, so I didn't even have Gremlin Horn yet when that happened. Clockwork Souvenir, Calculated Gamble, Frozen Egg, and Footwork Plus from the merchant. So we went into a shop with a good amount of money, and the Frozen Egg I think I bought largely just to have the upgrade on Footwork, because I'm going to be blocking with Dexterity in late game, it looks like. With 2 Footwork Plus, I'm pretty close to already being there. May have a Speed Potion for my Clockwork Souvenir for the hardest of the fights as well. Ceramic Fish doesn't matter. Upgraded the other footworks. Got a Well-Laid Plans Plus, so we're in business. Got a Duplication Potion, so now we have 9 Dexterity for the worst fight. Unudeka hit us pretty hard. While we have a lot of Dexterity, we don't have a lot of block cards, so having consistent block is still going to be difficult, but the Blur and Burst and Well-Laid Plans actually do a lot for us in fights where we don't get attacked every turn. So like against the Heart, we have Malaise and Piercing Wail and Blur. The Heart may actually have an easier damage profile for us to survive against than Donudeka do in this run, weirdly enough. Where Donudeka like attack us every turn and have artifact charges. So Malaise and Piercing Wail don't work as well, and Blur doesn't do as much. Awakened One wasn't too bad. Awakened One pretty much always quite an easy fight with Burst Malaise in your deck, unless you fail to draw them somehow. Oh, I didn't have Blur in my deck yet. Okay, well I bought Blur at the merchant apparently. And Shield and Spear dealt me 25 damage after I chose not to rest. The reason I don't rest here is that I have Pantograph, of course, although I only go up to 72 out of 81 health for the Heart fight. And the Heart itself dealt me 100 damage, putting me at 1. So, that's not incredibly unexpected with this deck. This deck struggles to deal damage. while it picked up Blade Dances, it does not have a Terror. It does not really have a ton of strength either. It has 1 accuracy. It has 1 finisher. Like, it's okay at dealing damage, but it's not very good at dealing damage. So it's not surprising that the heart dealt us a good chunk of damage because we were just stuck in the fight for a long time. I want to say though that generally when you see a run ending on 1 HP, you might think, oh my gosh, you were so close to dying, and that's sort of true, but also in the heart fight in particular, you're never fighting another enemy after this fight. So you have the ability to use all of your HP except for the last point of HP as a resource in the fight. If I'm looking at a footwork or a defend in my hand, I only have 1 energy left. If I have to deal with the consequences of losing 5 health in future fights over the course of the run, I might play the defend. But in the heart fight, I can just play the footwork. Just take the 5 damage, and then now I have a footwork in play. I don't have to worry about trying to protect my health. There's no extra value to me if I end this fight on 20 out of 81 versus ending it on 1 out of 81. And so generally, even though ending the fight at 1 HP looks really spooky and scary, and I'm sure it was very exciting to watch, and legitimately I think this deck came very close to losing, it's not as bad as it seems. Alright, run number 4. We're into the Runic Pyramid part of the win streak. I think I got Runic Pyramid like 4 times in a row or something here. We'll see. Runic Pyramid though, very, 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 very powerful relic. Because it lets you match the right card to the right situation, basically. This is the strongest deck that we've seen so far, just looking at it. Started with Caltrops over Dagger Spray. And a Hexaghost act. Maybe I had a whale bonus that made it easier for me to be beating elites. I took a Dagger Spray on the next floor, so it's not like I didn't want a Dagger Spray. I guess I just looked at Hexaghost and thought I would prefer not to die to Hexaghost, which is a reasonable thing to think. And also, if you live in a world where poison is less likely to be your mid and late game damage, Hexaghost is more scary. Hexaghost is dealt with quite nicely by poison damage, because the fight goes like 7 turns or whatever, so your poison has enough time to deal a lot of damage. Significantly more than something like a Skewer or a Dagger Spray is going to deal. But if you're not going to be taking poison as much, having a Caltrops to deal a lot of damage to that multi-attack enemy is a little bit more exciting. Masterful Stab over Piercing Whale, just because we need some damage, right? We got a Snecko Skull, so all of a sudden our poison cards are looking more exciting. This is something that I do not enjoy very much about Silent right now. It feels like Silent's attack cards and her poison cards are quite comparably capable of dealing with most situations in the game. But poison cards often like to have a little bit of support from relics to get through the first half of the game, and then like they're fine the latter half of the game, they just kill everything. And attack cards often like a little bit of relic support to get through the latter half of the game, and are fine in the beginning of the game. And because of that, there are just a lot of Silent runs that feel like you win or lose based on whether you get lucky and get the right relics. Like, even if I'm willing to be flexible and willing to deviate the course of my run to pick up attack cards for late game or whatever, when I get a Shuriken, quite often the Shuriken was going to be powerful. I'm saying this the wrong way around. Let's say that I pick up a Snecko Skull with an attack deck in Act 3. That's the example that I want. So that relic should be giving me some decent output. Is like, if you compare it to like Mercury Hourglass, this is just decent output. 24 damage per combat. Nice. Snecko Skull, meanwhile, even though I picked it up on floor 4, only gave me 5 damage per combat. This relic just doesn't work with the particular type of damage that I'm dealing. And I don't feel like any other character has this issue, really, because the other characters tend to be always dealing damage the same way, I'd say. Defect very rarely deals damage with attacks, but almost always deals damage with orbs. Ironclad pretty much chooses between powers or attacks, but there aren't relics that help the powers deal damage anyway. The relics are just helping the attacks. So anyway, with Silent, it feels like there are two fairly equally viable ways to deal damage, and it just feels sort of bad when your relics don't match them. And sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. Sometimes you just lose because of it. This is the run where I got a Wraith form from the Whale, by the way, which is probably why I took Caltrops, because once you have a Wraith form, taking a card that deals damage over time is very, very nice. So this Caltrops plus Wraith form already kills a lot of the scary stuff in Act 2 for us without much other help, for example. Okay, cool. Solved that mystery. We got the Warped Tongues again, which is awesome. Got a Bouncing Flask. Bouncing Flask makes sense with Snecko Skull and Wraith form. We want damage over time. We want poison damage over time. Didn't need to rest or anything before this elite because we have the Wraith form, so Gremlin Up isn't a problem, even though it took us 5 turns to kill it. Swarm of Slimes. I thought this was called Slime Gang, honestly. I didn't realize that it was called Swarm of Slimes. That's interesting to me. An Omamori and a Well-Laid Plans over damage cards, which is fine. Well-Laid Plans goes up in value when you want to play Wraith form on the right turn. And we beat up Hexaghost pretty bad and took an Adrenaline. So, all good. It offered Runic Pyramid, among other things probably. Even though we have Well-Laid Plans, we're very happy to take Runic Pyramid here. I believe there was a run during this month, possibly during one of the win streaks, where I had 2 Well-Laid Plans in my deck in Act 1 because I just started the act with cards that I really wanted to be able to play on the right turns. And I upgraded them both because I really started the run with cards I wanted to be able to play on the right turns. Like I might have had like a Burst and a Catalyst or something, I don't know. Maybe I had a Frozen Egg so they came upgraded. Maybe that's what happened. And I was offered Runic Pyramid and 2 other pretty decent relics and I took Runic Pyramid anyway. It's just so strong. Like the Well-Laid Plans cost energy to put into play, they're not in play on turn 1, you don't necessarily have them in your hand, so if you like draw Wraith form on turn 1 and don't have a Well-Laid Plans left yet, you're not able to hold onto Wraith form until when you need it. This relic's just insanely, insanely good. So, we're going through Act 2 with Wraith form and Runic Pyramid, and this is going to be one of the draw the rest of the elephant runs, I think. We're upgrading Catalyst, we have a Malise, we have Outmaneuver. Took a little bit of damage here and there, but mostly wasn't ever in danger and didn't bother resting. Got a Slaver's Collar for a little bit more energy against the difficult fights. We also have Nunchaku for a little bit of energy in theory. A Mind Bloom. Just killing things, taking no damage. Actually took 16 damage from Spirit Guardian with Shapes. Probably the artifact charges were tough for us there. Meanwhile, we're taking 0 damage from Reptimetzer and Giant Head. Recalling at this campfire. Taking 0 damage, taking 0 damage. Getting a Captain's Wheel as well to continue taking 0 damage. Oh, I had Shovel, so I was digging. Alright. My channel really likes it when I get Shovel and Dig, so just because I'm digging here doesn't actually mean it was the correct play, but looking at the run, it like probably actually was fine. I don't really need any upgrades right now, right? And I got a Pantograph, which is hilarious. 0 damage from Awakened One over 20 turns, 12 damage from Time Eater for 9 turns. Seems fine. And did I? It looks like I took gold from Mind Bloom and then didn't get a store for the entirety of Act 3. So here's my second Wraith form. Bunch of like card draw and stuff. And we win. Good stuff. That run, yeah, once we have Wraith form, Anchor, and Runic Pyramid, it's hard for us to take a ton of damage in this run, and that's certainly what happened going on with the run. Just need enough damage to kill things before you run out of intangible, and the Caltrops Plus did a lot of work there, the Crippling Cloud Plus, much I got it here, yeah, the Crippling Cloud Plus does a lot of work there. So, very good. Hey, this run actually doesn't have Runic Pyramid. Alright, maybe I was slightly less lucky than I thought in my silent runs. So, this looks like a rough Act 1 with only 2 relics, although they're okay relics. 57 damage prevented on Tori. Meanwhile, Ornamental Fan blocked for 472. Early Dash is fine. Dash is one of those cards where early in the game you just need your deck to output more damage and more block, and so you take Dash. Later in the game you need your deck to have synergies with things and scale and stuff, so Dash is not a very exciting card anymore. But early game, Dash is great. Upgraded Neutralize over... I guess Strike is probably the other option there. You don't love upgrading Dash all that much in Act 1, because the block is often wasted. It's like just a 3 damage upgrade on a card that you actually aren't going to play every single time you draw it. Sometimes the block's okay, and it becomes a better upgrade once you get into Act 2 and things are attacking for more than 10 more regularly. This is a very early Acrobatics. I guess it's Acrobatics over Skipping probably though. Probably want Acrobatics more than Backflip at the moment. Purchased an Infinite Blades, which is interesting. I guess I just needed some scaling damage against Hexaghost, and the Silent doesn't have a super high guarantee of ever finding that. I actually upgraded Infinite Blades too. I think it was probably my way to beat Gremlin Knob, so makes sense. Lagavulin gives me a Predator, so our damage is a little bit better now. Got a Caltrops for the Hexaghost Act again, got an Ornamental Fan with a decent chunk of attacks, including Infinite Blades already, and I don't even know where I got After Image. Oh, is After Image for the Whale? Okay. So I bought Infinite Blades with an After Image in my deck already, which makes more sense. Also got an Accuracy from floor 11, so we're building a Shiv deck here. In quotations, upgrade the Accuracy. Like a Blur is fine. Blur is probably better here than anywhere else we've seen it so far, because with After Image and Ornamental Fans and Shiv generation, I'm just going to be making block all of the time, but enemies don't attack all of the time. So it's not like... In some of the other situations I've bought Blur, it's like the only reason I'm going to make block is if I need to make block for 2 turns to survive an attack. So like I know Automaton's going to attack me for 63 next turn, I'm going to spend this turn making 24 block and next turn making 24 block as well, and I'll block for enough. That's sort of what Blur has been used for in previous runs where we've seen it. But here, no matter what I do, I'm going to make block. If I play 3 attacks with After Image in play, that's already 7 block this turn. And so here it's more like, well, I'm making block all the time, but enemies don't attack all of the time, so sometimes Blur is just a really nice card to have to hold block over for next turn, because I have the block anyway. We're upgrading Caltrops, we're killing Hexaghost fairly easily and taking Burst, which I want to say is probably the best rare that I've actually seen at the end of Act 1 so far in these runs. These runs have not been anywhere near as lucky as I remember them being. And then I took Snecko Eye from the boss reward, which is not that incredible here. I just have the Dash, which really likes it. A problem with Snecko Eye is if you have cards you desperately want to put in play, like After Image and Infinite Blades, if it makes them cost 3, you can't put them in play. Well, you can, but it costs 3. So often decks which really center around one-cost scaling cards, like ours. Defect decks are like this a lot, where they want their capacitors, defragments, and loops in play. Often those decks don't like Snecko-Eye as much. And I feel like this is a deck that doesn't like Snecko-Eye all that much, but on the other hand is a very, very powerful relic. We have time to improve our deck to take better use of it, make better use of it, and I'm guessing that the other options were not super great anyway, so it seems fine. There's always like getting offered a bullet time in the future to make it incredibly good, or what happened in this run, which is that we got offered 3 leg sweeps. I think I already had a Predator as well, actually, that I forgot about, so that makes it a little bit better than I was remembering. Purchasing Preserved Insect and Happy Flower from the store is so strong. Have to trade Blood Vial for bites with no strikes removed yet as well. I'm pretty sure there are no strikes removed. It's also very good. Got another Blur. Still a pretty solid pickup. And a Potion Belt from Glimmerman Leader. Upgraded Dash. It's brave, but I guess I have bites. This is not actually that brave. This is the first leg sweep of the run. Once we get like leg sweep and thread and needle here, it starts to be pretty safe. We've got leg sweep and dash and Tori and thread and needle and ornamental fan and after image. Our deck's getting pretty good at blocking, and also we have pretty good damage output. So got wing boots from Taskmaster. Took Phantasmal Killer. I guess that's fine. Phantasmal Killer is definitely one way that you can scale your deck to be killing things, and I already have the accuracy plus, so I'm already pretty much committed to building around Blade Dance, although I haven't been offered Blade Dance yet, but someday I might get it. Pick another Infinite Blades off of Book of Stabbing and a Pen Nib. Pick another Leg Sweep off of Taskmaster. Finisher is like... The thing is that accuracy makes your shivs deal so much damage that Finisher isn't even that good. Like, if I could pick between Finisher Plus and Blade Dance Plus in this deck, I would pick Blade Dance Plus in a second. And Blade Dance is a common, so it's not unreasonable to think I'm going to find another 1 or 2 of those. I don't need that many. It's going to deal so much damage. It's not like I need 8 of them. Strength Potion from Parasite and Fungi Beast, not taking the Deadly Poison Plus. This is not a deck that cares about poison damage at any point of the run. This is a deck that's planning to beat the bosses with attack damage, and already a lot of the way to doing so. Another Phantasmal Killer, and a Runic Dome. Runic Dome, Runic Dome, Runic Dome. I think Runic Dome is often paired somewhat nicely with Snecko-Eye, because Snecko-Eye sort of often prescribes which cards you're going to play in your turn anyway. There's a lot more play to Snecko-Eye than people who complain about Snecko-Eye say there is. I hear a lot of people complain about Snecko-Eye and say that it takes decision making out of their hands, and the run just becomes about whether they get low-cost cards or high-cost cards and stuff, and it's a little bit true, but you also have to consider that you have 2 additional cards in your hand every turn, which gives you a tremendous number more options for which combinations of things to play. Like, if you can play 3 cards out of 7, for example, that is 35 different combinations of things you can play, whereas if you can choose 3 cards out of 5 to play, you only have 10 combinations of things to play. So yes, Snecko-Eye will make some of the cards pretty hard to play because they cost 3 and they're just not worth that much, but by having a 7-card hand to start with, you have more than 3 times as many possibilities of combinations of 3 cards in that hand than you would with a 5-card hand to start with. So there is still a lot of thinking going on when you have a Snecko-Eye. Even if some turns it's very obvious that you have to do a certain thing. On other turns, it's not so obvious. So yeah, I think sometimes Runic Dome is going to play well with Snecko-Eye and sometimes it isn't. In this deck, as we've been saying, throughout this, we accidentally make block a lot, and decks which accidentally make block are really great for Runic Dome, because you're going to make block whether you want to or not, so it doesn't really matter if you can tell that the enemies are attacking you. You're just gonna make block anyway. This deck doesn't like make 100 block accidentally, it makes 10 something, 15 maybe. Which means that there are going to be turns where it's hard to tell whether we need to play leg sweep or not. But overall, I think it's a pretty good Runic Dome. I'd take Runic Dome over quite a few other energy relics in this situation. Bought a third leg sweep, obtained another blade dance, obtained a burst. Deck's getting strong here. Remove to defend at Bonfire. Spirits over. I wonder if there's like an argument for removing Die over defend. Probably not. Not before you fought Reptimaster, probably. Maybe then. Using a lot of wing boots charges to get extra elites as we go through this. Nice thing about being strong enough to be fighting elites and having wing boots. My voice is dying. Nemesis dealt 24 to us, which is more than most things have dealt. Oh, I didn't even have Die yet. I tried on flying me into it. Yeah, I probably don't have a rare that I'm okay with giving up. Giant Head, pretty easy. Writhing Mass, we healed off, it looks like. Bought Twisted Funnel from a merchant, which is weird, right? Because we don't have any poison in our deck. We're just using this to strip artifact charges though, basically, so that we can apply weak with leg sweep faster. Also get piercing wail through artifact charges. It's a perfectly fine relic just to be doing that. The gold value is okay. Get through Donu Deca, full health still. Get through Awakened One, full health still. And we go to Act 4, upgrade a footwork by Orange Pellets, which is an incredibly powerful relic, just all the time. Also, with Snecko Eye, Orange Pellets cleanses your confusion, but leaves you still drawing 2 additional cards every turn. So that's a little bit weird here. I vaguely remember this heart fight, actually. And I remember that I didn't immediately cleanse the confusion. Like, I actually was pretty happy with randomizing the costs on my leg sweeps, for example, before I cleansed it. I'm pretty sure that's true. You want to proc Orange Pellets on turn 2, though, anyway, to remove your vulnerable and frail against the heart's big attacks. 55 damage from Spear and Shield. Shield and Spear. A really big thing you can do that's very hard to do if you're dealing damage with a poison, actually, but somewhat easy if you're doing it with attack damage, is you can leave the shield alive and then try to heal as much as possible off it with bites after you've killed the spear. The shield doesn't deal that much damage to you, and it gives itself block very regularly, so you can hit it with bites without killing it. So yeah, got a good chunk of health back there, and then we have Pantographs. Heart fight, we actually end up at 55 with all things said and done. Just draw the rest of the elephant. This is a deck that once it cleanses its debuffs on turn 2, the heart just doesn't do great against it for quite a while. Leg sweep's very good, blur very good, burst plus leg sweep. Drawing 7 cards a turn is pretty good. Deck ended up with 3 copies of Blur, so that's going on as well, making sure that we carry block over. Blur's a good card with Snecko Eye too. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but when you have inconsistent block output, Blur can be nice because you might make 50 block accidentally one turn and 0 block the next turn, and if the enemies attack you for 25 both turns, which is pretty normal, a lot of enemies just sort of attack you for 20 or so every turn, you want to be able to carry that 50 block to the next turn. And with Snecko Eye and things costing 0s or 3s, that happens a decent amount. This run was sick. This run was awesome. This run, I think, was when I started really feeling very mediocre about Blade Dance. Like, I say that it was awesome and we sort of stomped the Spire, but also I sort of don't want this run to happen very often because it's not that enjoyable to play, really. We got a Blade Dance 4-1, took some gold, upgraded our Defend and Blade Dance at our event, bought a Twisted Funnel, got a treasure with an ice cream, upgraded Neutralize, got a Deadly Poison, probably the only poison card in the deck. Oh, there's a Noxious Fiend too. Rested, grab Blood Vial, grab a Predator, 15 damage versus Lagavulin, and a Noxious Fumes. Upgrade the Noxious. 8 damage against Gremlin Knob, killed it pretty quick, got a Shuriken and a backflip. At this point, with the Shuriken, we're already pretty interested in spamming attacks. There's a Blade Dance on 4-1, remember? Leg Sweep's nice to keep us alive. Leg Sweep works almost everywhere. So you have Wraith Form and really don't want block cards. Surprisingly few Wraith Form one streak. And we got an Afterimage from Hexaghost after beating it pretty comfortably. One of the reasons that we're taking poison cards in this act is to make sure that we can beat Hexaghost, even with a Shuriken. Pretty nice to have poison. Pretty sure it will still out damage attacks even though they have Shuriken ramp. And then I took a Wrist Blade from the boss. So, I'm pretty sure this was over 2 other reasonable relics, for what it's worth, if I remember right. But yeah, once you have Wrist Blade, obviously you're looking for more copies of Blade Dance, and you deal so much damage that you're like looking for a few more copies of Blade Dance and then the ability to block. We bought Infinite Blades and Trip. So no Terror available yet, but we want that multiplier on damage, so picking up the Trip, it's okay. Grabbed a Footwork over an Acrobatics and a Catalyst. This is maybe more defensive than is necessary, although I don't really have defensive relics, so I guess I understand it. The Acrobatics Plus looks really good, is all I'm thinking, but I only have 3 energy as well and don't have much to change that. Ice Cream doesn't do great with only 3 energy, so it's not really a consideration at the moment. Endless Agony deals 16 for 0, pretty good. Also procs Shuriken a lot of the time. Gremlin Leader we took 2 damage against. Upgrading an Afterimage is great with our attempt to attack spam. We got a Blade Dance Plus from Book of Stabbing here, so now we're really solid. Outmaneuver Plus to get a little bit of energy going. I think it's an interesting choice between Outmaneuver Plus and Concentrate. Concentrate's made a little bit better by Blade Dance because you can discard shivs. On the other hand, our shivs deal 8 and proc Shuriken, so you don't really want to discard them. So I ended up going with the upgraded Outmaneuver. Nice that it's already upgraded too. Got a Cloak and Dagger, which is awesome. Upgraded Footwork, awesome. We have a Singing Bowl at this point, so we can start skipping cards when we don't want them. And grabbing the Ninja Scroll is really good. This is 24 damage plus a Shuriken proc on turn 1. We also have an Afterimage upgraded already, so it's also 3 block. Upgraded Cloak and Dagger instead of resting against Bronze Automaton, which was not a problem. Our damage is very, very fast at this point. Died in 5 turns, and we got another Runic Pyramid. So, I didn't take Concentrate. One reason to take Concentrate earlier on in this act over Outmaneuver is that it works much, much better with Runic Pyramid. But this deck actually has a slight problem with Runic Pyramid, that it doesn't have enough energy to get rid of its cards in hand. And especially with Blade Dance, you need room in your hand to actually make the shivs, so that is going to be awkward. Generally, with Runic Pyramid, on Silent, if you take it at the end of Act 1, it used to be the case that you just play a pretty safe Act 2 and then take a 4th energy most of the time at the end of Act 2 and be good. But now, like, Silent's so strong that often you just play an aggressive Act 2 anyway, so whatever, and then you take energy at the end of Act 2 and you're even better than before. But often when you take Runic Pyramid at the end of Act 2, if you don't have 3 energy already, or even if you if you don't have 4 energy already, sorry. Or even if you do have 4 energy already, but you took a card draw throughout Act 2, often you end up in a situation where going into Act 3, you really need something like a Concentrate to get enough energy to keep drawing 5 cards a turn. It's a little bit rough if Runic Pyramid blocks your hand and doesn't let you draw cards every turn. Having Calculated Gamble helps a bit because you can discard the cards that you don't want to get to the ones that you want. Having Outmaneuver helps a bit here. Energy Relics would help, but we don't really have any of those, so it's a little bit tricky, is what I'm saying with the Runic Pyramid. There are definitely times where Runic Pyramid is not the pick at the end of Act 2 here, and this could perhaps have been close to one, but obviously it was good enough to win. I don't know. Piercing Whale from Darklings. Deflect, because we just need 0 cost stuff. I guess we also wanted block cards instead of damage cards. There's an Endless Agony here as well. Orange Pellets and another Afterimage. Orange Pellets even better than usual with Runic Pyramid because you can guarantee a rock on it. And I took a Nightmare, which is... I'm not sure that I used Nightmare very many times. Although I immediately got Panache afterwards at Sensory Stone, so actually... Oh, that's interesting. Sensory Stone only shows you one of the things. I'm pretty sure I got Panache and 2 Finesse here. I'm pretty sure I actually looked at 3 cards. Yeah, I took 10 damage, so I definitely did. So once I have Panache and double defend, or double Finesse, all of a sudden the Nightmare looks a lot better. And Smiling Mask immediately gives +2 max HP, which is nice. A Speed Potion is awesome. Now we have 5 Dexterity for the toughest fight in the game, thanks to Orange Pellets cleansing the debuff. Pocket Watch is never going to do anything relevant. All these Smoothstone's good though. We got a Malaise from Mind Bloom, which is awesome. We got a Bag of Marbles and another Blade Dance. Both are good. And lifted once. Minimal damage on the boss fights. Lifted again. Purchased some really good potion and cards for the final fights and won pretty comfortably. So yeah, this run... The problem with this run basically is that I took Blade Dance on floor 1, and then the entire run was essentially just to make Blade Dance better. But it's like, it's just a common. It's very linear. This is maybe the most linear of all of the runs that I've shown so far in reviewing these streaks. I don't really want to play a ton of runs of Slay the Spire like that because it loses the nuance that Slay the Spire has that makes Slay the Spire a better deck building game than other deck builders. So that's too bad, but also we got the win. Count it. Go next. This is the same day. I think I actually have 3 wins on the 31st of January in this streak. Sort of nuts. So it's particularly crazy because I was playing all of the other characters between each of these runs, keep in mind. It wasn't like just playing silent runs over and over again. This is 8 runs after the first run. This third one on the 31st. So fairly nuts. I don't know how much I want to really even talk about this run, because it's a quadruple Blade Dance run with Runic Pyramid and Wristblade and 2 Footworks. And it's basically the same deck as the last one we looked at. I even have an Ornamental Fan right at the start of the run. I think the big thing with this run is that I didn't find an early Afterimage. In fact, I never found an Afterimage. And so I had to actually block with leg sweeps, but I got Paper Grain, so not like that was super hard. See how low our health went in this one. cruised through Act 2, went to 39 out of 60 in Act 2. Which was... oh, Time Eater dealt us some damage. But yeah, 39 out of 60 in Act 2 was pretty close to the lowest that my health went for the entirety of the run. And this is an Ascension 20 run of this game, right? Like, this is the highest difficulty of the game. I just, like, took Blade Dance, the silent common on floor 2, and then my health never went below 39. Wait, no, 28. Thank you, Time Eater, for dealing me some damage. But, like, this wasn't relevant damage. I just get it all back. Too bad. Yup. I've spoken at some length about my opinions of Blade Dance, so I'm not gonna go crazy with it again. Interesting that we took Madness this run, with Prepared to help set it up, with Burst to try to get it on lots of cards. It was a way to try to help with our energy issues with another 3 energy pyramid run. Madness tends to... it's funny. People look at Madness, and I think most people analyze the role that the card can have in creating an infinite. If you make a card cost 0, it doesn't cost energy to play it anymore, so you can play it as many times as you want. And if you make another card cost 0 and it can get that one back or whatever, like if you make 2 holograms cost 0, boom. As much block as you want. If you make 2 all-for-ones cost 0, boom. The thing is, that's really hard to set up. It's like very hard to have enough control of the cards in your deck to actually do that. And sure, you can do it, but it's like one of a tremendous number of different ways to go infinite in this game. It's not like the only way to go infinite is with Madness. This is just one card that can be a way to go infinite that is significantly more awkward than the other ones and doesn't do very much when you draw it. It's basically how I'd describe it. The other role that Madness has that I actually think it performs in slightly more often is it's just a slow energy scaling card over the course of a fight. You just like make a leg sweep cost 0, and if you play that leg sweep 3 times in the fight, you've made 6 energy, and that can matter. 6 energy for 1 energy is a pretty good trade over the course of time. So instead of thinking about it like a crazy awesome infinite enabler, I think about it more like a very unexciting Deva form or something like that, which sometimes you need a very unexciting Deva form. It's just how the game works. Sometimes you just need some help with energy. Alright, let's get out of here. Don't want to look at that one anymore. So the month ended 127. 127 wins. This is sort of insane, but if you look at this, I'm on this silent win streak, right? Which we're going through right now. I win 9 in a row. I am also, at the same time, setting a world record alternating, or rotating rather. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So these silent world record streak runs are also present in a rotating world record streak. At least 4 of them are. Pretty crazy. I guess that means I won't have to go over them again when I'm looking at the world record rotating streak. Anyway, I slowed down a significant amount after the end of January, but because I had both of those streaks going on, I felt somewhat obliged to continue playing and also to like try to play at a somewhat high level. I was absolutely exhausted. I was pretty excited at the idea of like sleeping for 18 hours and then reading a book for the rest of my day. It was sort of my mode for the beginning of February. But we still played some Spire and we managed to do okay. This is legitimately Runic Pyramid Wristblade again. With 2 blade dances. Like, straight up actually the case. Which is, like, whatever. Let's see how I got into it this time. Blade dance on floor 2. Early Apotheosis purchase is nice. I like Apotheosis, I think, more on Silent than on other characters because Silent's better at drawing Apotheosis fast because she has her additional 2 cards at the start of turn 1 and also cards like Calculated Gamble. And because Silent often blocks by pairing Footworks with lots of crappy block cards. Like cards like Deflect and Escape Plan, and Defend even, and Backflip. These cards are like okay, but they're like 1-cost commons. And it's not generally the case for other characters that they're building a tremendously important part of their late game output out of 1-cost commons. Other characters are like, blocking? Well, I forgot I even needed to do that after I played my Mental Fortress, or my Defragment, or my Barricade. It just happens automatically for me now. Sometimes Ironclad's like, I don't even need to block, I have Reaper, what are you talking about? With Silent though, Silent actually regularly blocks late game with 1-cost commons. Like you just play 2 copies of Footwork Plus and then you play lots of backflips and dodge and rolls. And when you have a strategy that's built around having a critical mass of low-cost commons, it does actually often provide you reason to care about upgrading all of your deck. All of a sudden, all of these commons are upgraded, and they're all blocking for an additional, like, 3+ block. It's sort of like playing another Footwork in a way, except that it also upgrades all of your other cards and turns on all of the other things that they do. So, Apotheosis probably, I would say, better on Silent than the other characters most of the time, in my vague opinion. I hate to state that as a fact, because everything in this game is contextual, but a lot of the time for the reasons that I said about Silent's inclination toward spamming lots of block commons. I think Apotheosis is particularly good for her. We got the Specimen, Phantasmal Killer, and Distilled Chaos from Lagavulin. It seems like a pretty nice fight. Relic and a rare. Don't imagine Specimen did very much though. Upgraded well-laid plans, sure, why not? Got a Lizard Tail. Transformed a strike into a well-laid plans, wait for it. Got a bird face turn, so those well-laid plans are doing great. Rested. Killed a Gremlin Knob, down to 4 health. Upgraded a well-laid plans. So I have 2 upgraded well-laid plans. This is the run I was talking about earlier. With 4 HP going into the Hexaghost fight, which I healed through. With well-laid plans, we're just pretty safe against Hexaghost. If you don't know, this is one of the things that you pick up somewhat quickly in the game. It's one of the things that doesn't make very much sense, and most immediately it presents itself to you as not making sense. Hexaghost's first attack scales off how much current HP you have, for some reason. I don't know why. I really couldn't tell you why. But if you have more current HP, it attacks you for more on turn 2. And if you have less current HP, it attacks you for less on turn 2. And so walking into the Hexaghost fight with very little HP is actually fairly safe. Where like Guardian can hit you really hard in turn 2, Slime Boss can hit you really hard in turn 3. If you walk into Hexaghost fight with very little health, you're not getting attacked for more than 18 for the first 7 turns of the fight. So with 2 well-laid plans, we're pretty safe there. And yeah, we took a Runic Pyramid, despite the fact that I have double well-laid plans. I even have Bird Face turn to make them particularly good. But Runic Pyramid's just sort of insane. Took another Blade Dance, we're getting hit pretty hard, dying to the Masked Bandits, but, you know, it's okay. I didn't take bites this run. I guess it's fine, just resting. Wing Boots to fight more elites even. I got a Ritual Dagger, which tends to play pretty nicely with Pyramid. What's going on here at the end of Act 2 is that I have a lizard tail, and you can see lizard tail actually didn't kill me for anything, so it didn't even go off here. But I'm like going into elite fights with 30 health left and dropping down to 11 with a boss fight coming up, and the reason I get to do that is that I have a lizard tail. A lot of the time, the strength of something like lizard tail or fairy in a bottle is not what happens when it actually gets used. It's the fact that you can take massive risks because you have it. And a lot of the time, you just like high roll a little bit while taking those massive risks and don't even need it in the end. Like a lot of the time, if you think about all of the runs that we've looked at, it's pretty normal for me to take like 10 to 20 damage from Act 2 elite fights. It just like is generally how much damage I take from Act 2 elite fights. So when I walk into the Taskmaster fight with 30 health, it's not super surprising that I don't die. It's like pretty normal. It's a pretty normal Slaver's fight. But if I didn't have Lizard Tail, I would lose the run here somewhat often, because it is still possible for me to draw poorly and die here. It is possible to take 30 even though it's normal to take 10 to 20. And so Lizard Tail is letting me more aggressively pursue these high value floors. An elite fight gives me a relic, it gives me a higher chance of rare cards from my reward. I got a Tools of the Trade, which I took an Outmaneuver unupgraded over. Big ups Outmaneuver. Probably Outmaneuver, one of the cards that went up in value the most in my estimation with the patch. And yeah, I got that elite, I got this elite, we got another fight even. And then I decided to rest before the automaton. I think I actually thought there was a pretty good chance that I would die twice if I didn't rest against the automaton. But fortunately, didn't even die a single time. Got a Wraith form, so now I'm playing Runic Pyramid, Wristblade, Wraith form plus, double Blade Dance, Phantasmal Killer. Actually end up having a grand finale too. We have Bird-Faced Iron as well, so we're sustaining through these fights. Don't drop below 50, going through Act 3. This is all very fine and well and safe. And then upgrade our Wraith form by Orange Palette's Duplication Pot. Duplication Pot, I think, was sort of the final piece in the puzzle here. This deck was maybe going to have a little bit of trouble blocking for more than 3 turns. Time Eater died in 4 turns, the Deck had died in 7 turns, so I didn't need to block for much more than that long against them. But against the Heart, I might need to block for a little bit longer, so we grab the Duplication Potion. Now all we have to do is draw Wraith form, basically we win. Very little damage against Spield and Shear, Shield and Spear, and 14 damage over 9 turns against the Heart. So that's 3 runs in a row now, actually, with Runic Pyramid, Wristblade, which is a little bit crazy. Yeah. Not really sure what to say about it. Another thing that's been constant through these has been pretty good defenses, whether by like leg sweeps and Snecko Eyes, or leg sweeps and bursts, or leg sweeps and paper cranes, or bites, or bird-faced irons for sustain. I've had pretty good ways to keep myself healthy going through all of these runs as well. I feel like it's easy to undervalue how important that is. Being able to not take a bunch of damage on turn 1, 2, and 3 of fights, and being able to sustain through damage that you do take, makes a huge difference in this game, because it's the difference between having to go to a campfire and resting versus getting to take your wing boots to another elite fight and getting another relic and all of a sudden having a thread and needle or something like that, which is a big deal. Alright, this is the 6th of February, so 3 days later I have another Runic Pyramid. So is that? That is 4 in a row. And 5 total in the streak. Yep, Runic Pyramid's a pretty good relic usually. I started on floor 1 with Blade Dance, and I sort of want to vomit. Took a Finisher over Endless Agony Flechettes, which I think is like probably fine. Maybe Endless Agony is better than it, but probably Finisher with Blade Dance. Predator as well, so we're doing quite nicely just in terms of having lots of damage in our deck, and now we're looking for ways to build synergies out of that damage or ways to block to keep us alive while we deploy that damage mostly. Calculated Gamble is nice for finding whatever it is that we get later, although we don't have it yet. And then we get a Ninja Scroll and a Malaise. So now we're very good at killing things quickly, and also we have the Malaise to keep ourselves alive for lots and lots of fights. Upgrade Finisher, kill some of these things. I don't even know what this is. Is this the double fungus fight? Exordium Wildlife. Probably the double fungus fight. I think. Must be. An Endless Agony and a Cunning Potion, so we are like very ready to kill elites. Skipped Infinite Blades this time around. I don't know, seems fine. I remember being very frustrated in this run because I found Tough Bandages on floor 13, and I already had a Calculated Gamble, and this run's capable of being completely off the wall, not so insane, like just completely insane in a good way. Insane in a, I don't mean that in a detrimental way to anyone or to this deck. Like this deck with Tough Bandages on floor 13 and already one Calculated Gamble threatens to redefine what we think of as numbers with how much block it could make. But I just went through the entire rest of the run winning very easily, but not finding a Calculated Gamble, and it was just very frustrating. I just wanted my deck to be broken, but instead I just like walked into my Guardian fight with 8 HP and killed it very easily, and then took a Runic Dome, so I can't even see what enemies are doing anymore, but I'm figuring, you know, it's fine. One Calculated Gamble and it won't matter. I now have Chemical X for my Malaise at the store, which is excellent, and a second Malaise, so enemies can't deal me damage anyway, but I still want to make like 600 block. but I can't. I just walk through the entire act, I get a Footwork Plus and an Oddly Smooth Stone on the same floor, so I'm incredibly good at blocking now. A Regal Pillow, so if I ever take damage I can just heal it all back. A Footwork again, so I'm even better at blocking. And then I got a Wraith form from Champ after taking 0 damage for 13 floors, and this is just 13 turns rather. This is just a very frustrating exercise in being an incredibly strong silent deck, but not in the way that you exactly want. Actually took some damage from Reptimancer. And the Jawworms actually almost killed me. So here I am thinking, God, my deck is so strong, but I had 2 bad fights in a row, and now I might die, and I don't have my Calculated Gamble. And I could have had my Calculated Gamble and it would have been so much fun, but yeah, we just pretty easily heal back up from taking our damage. Lee's Waffle in the store is nice. It actually is really nice. Sort of saved the run, because Donudeka and Time Eater both dealt some decent damage to us. Our damage with this deck is, I think, the slowest of all of the Runic Pyramid decks. This time we don't have Wrist Blade to go with our Blade Dances, so that's part of it. I just have the 1 accuracy plus. I don't have like a Shuriken or other strength scaling. I actually don't have Terror, so I can't even get the vulnerable multiplier on enemies. So this deck struggles a little bit to deal damage, but it also sort of cannot die to the heart. And I imagine that these fights were a lot less dangerous than they look because I was holding potions in them, I'm pretty sure. I don't buy potions here, so I must have a full potion belt still. 0 damage from the shield and a spear, and 46 damage from the corrupt heart over 14 turns, which is fine. It can deal a little bit of damage to you, as long as you kill it at the end. So after that, I think my rotating win streak ended around about here. I'm pretty sure I like played the rotating win streak all the way out, but my silent win streak was like still there and I just wanted a break. So it was over a week before I played again. And I remember I played this run and lost. This is at 9, by the way, which is equal world record with R9's world record, which I mentioned earlier. So I like have the world record already. I'm not somebody who cares much about being better than other people, so I don't mind if somebody else has 9 as well. It's fine by me. I feel like a lot of the pressure's off. Honestly, if I win like 15 in a row, it's going to be really hard to ever like get that high again. It will just sort of be a pain. Who wants to count that high? So after my like week off, I came back and played my silent run, and I think I didn't care that much about this run. If you look at the runs in general, these are mostly under 2 hours, honestly. Actually, yeah, this entire win streak has no run longer than an hour and 50 minutes, so it's not like any of these runs I was spending a tremendous amount of brain power on. Although, how much brain power can you use to play Blade Dance with Runic Pyramid? I don't know. I remember playing this run though, and it actually being really, really close, and feeling like it was a run that I could have won had I maybe played it a week earlier. Like, had I been a little bit more dialed in than I was. It's a run that's very similar to a lot of the runs we just looked at. It has Wrist Blade, it has double Blade Dance, it has an Afterimage, it has a Wraith Form and double Accuracy. I actually ended up taking 3 Infinite Blades because I felt behind the entire way through the run somehow. I think I also may have been memeing a little bit. So funny to like be talking about a world record streak and be like, yeah, I think I just sort of was done and wanted to have some fun. But anyway, I took 3 copies of Infinite Blades, which isn't actually very good. Like, they're just not the best. I took Bites without having access to Blood Vial, which killed a lot of my max HP. Wonder if that was maybe a poor choice. Another observation is just that like my relics aren't that good in this run. They just don't output very much. In particular, block is very absent from my relics, which, you know, places a lot more strain on the cards that you actually take to get you through the run. Could have maybe found another Wraith form somewhere, but I never did. I have 1 footwork, but I'm missing the second. They don't have my like orange pellets, so I'm in a lot of danger on turn 2 and 3 of the heart fight. They're just a lot of... It's like a very similar to run to several that we looked at before, but this is an example of one which just doesn't quite have enough to easily win. And maybe there was a way through this if I was really dialed in. But as it panned out, we did not quite get there. The shield and spear were the big problem for us, actually. These mostly killed us. And then the heart just finished the job on turn 2. So, gonna be very hard for this deck to beat the heart even at 49 health though, honestly. Because it can't survive turn 2 or 3, really. It doesn't have the relics to do it. It can draw Piercing Wail for the multi-attack, but it doesn't even have a well-laid plans to make that easier to pull off. No Frozen Eye either or anything like that. And if you play Wraith Form with this deck against the turn 2 and 3 attacks, you're just not going to kill the heart fast enough to deal with the dexterity down every turn. So, unfortunately, the world record streak came to an end, but it was a ton of fun. I think there were some really interesting runs in the first half, and then in the second half, Blade Dance was sort of dominant. It felt like in the first half of reviewing this world record streak, I was really like thinking a lot about what the deck was doing and how well it could do against certain fights, and as I went through each of the acts, it was like, yeah, well now the deck needs this thing in particular, so we're trying to get this thing turned on and stuff, and I was looking at the relic rewards and being like, oh yeah, this relic's really important. And so it's really good that we got that. And then in the second half of it, it was just like, yep, our deck is established with Blade Dance, Defense, and Sustain, and I can just scan through all of the fights where we don't take damage, and then we won. So I have, as you can tell, very vocal and particular opinions about the balancing going on with Blade Dance, and I will probably continue to have them forever, but it is what it is. That's 2 down. 8 with Ironclad, 9 with Silent. Next I'm going to talk about is 10 with Defect, which is exciting. I think I'm not sure if I held the record previously, ever. But I know Crimson Blur got 10 in a row with Defect. I'm pretty sure he did. If he didn't, then, like, he's lucking out, because I'm going to say that he did. And if I'm wrong, I apologize. And it was a very impressive record. I think Crimson Blur is a very, very good Defect player. He understands Defect very well. And a lot of my success with Defect is actually modeled on seeing how Blur played it. Because he played one of the types of Defect decks that I used to play, but he just played it every time, and it worked better than what I was doing. So I just stopped playing the other decks that I used to play and just played the one that I saw that Blur was having a ton of success with, and then it turned out that it wins a ton. So thank you to him for discovering that, and I saw him get 10, and I believe after that I got 9 twice, and then finally equaled his 10 with the Defect run that we're gonna look at. Alright. But that is for another time. I'd better rest my voice. I've been talking in this video for over 2 hours, apparently. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.